Well, tonight's guest is Ward Emling. He's our statewide film commissioner, and he has a great insight into what's happening in the film industry. And if you're interested in film, if you're a filmmaker, an actor, if you're just interested in what's going on in the film industry within our state, you will find out a lot tonight, and you will find out some very valuable contact information to keep in the loop. Ward Emling, our film commissioner, coming up next.
Since 1849, Carter Jewelers has been a part of Jackson's rich history. Over 163 years later, we've not only survived, Carter Jewelers has flourished. From generation to generation, we've established a tradition of excellence. Our reputation is built on customer satisfaction, service, and trust. Every piece of jewelry is handpicked, so you know you're getting the best value.
Nobody says I do like we do at Carter Jewelers.
Come see us and be part of our history.
Well, welcome to Nightique, and with us tonight, the film commissioner of the state of Mississippi, Mr. Ward Emling.
Hello, Edward. How are you?
Hello, Ward. Good to have you here with us.
I'm glad to be here.
So, okay, now, a lot of interesting things happening, good things happening.
Oh, yeah.
In the film world with Mississippi. Can you give us a little insight as to what's going on?
Well, we just came out of the best year we've ever had. 2014 was an extraordinary year. We had 19 films, 6 reality shows, 6 documentaries, and some commercials. It was a remarkable year for us, and you know, and there's a real range of films that we had, from Get On Up. I guess the highest budget film that we had was Get On Up, and the lowest budget film we had was, other than the shorts, we had a couple of shorts, was a film that was locally produced called The Livingston Gardener, which I think is going to be a nice little film. So it's a good year.
So why are Hollywood films coming to Mississippi to shoot?
Well, you know, because of you and me, you know, because they know we're here. Because of the incentive is one thing, and the locations and the people. But finally, I think after 10 years of tweaking the incentive and talking about the incentive and supporting some other, you know, productions that have been here, and you know, it's last year was the tipping point. It kind of all came together, and we had some films that we'd been working on for a while that finally happened, and then we had some filmmakers come back and make another film. In fact, we had one filmmaker come back and make 2 films, and you know, it's just that. It's just a combination of a lot of relationship building and paying attention to the incentive program, and you know, tweaking it, and you know, making it a little more relevant and more responsible to the filmmaker, and you know, and it's not going to slow down. I mean, you know, we're busy now, and we expect to be busy like last year, this year, and the year after, and the year after. So.
Okay, you mentioned the film incentive, the incentive program.
Right.
Now, for folks out there who may not be familiar with it, can you tell us what is the incentive program?
Sure. Well, I mean, the film industry works just like any other industry that we might develop, and as I like to say, I'm just an economic developer, like somebody who's trying to, you know, bring Nissan in, or Toyota, or you know, any industry into the state, and so we put an incentive program into place, which most states, 40-something states, have incentive programs. So most countries have incentive programs. So we're in this global competition for the entertainment industry, and so 10 years ago, in the 2004 session, we created our first incentive, and then we've just been tweaking it up since then. And right now, it's a 25% rebate on production spend, on what a production spends in Mississippi. And then there's a 25% rebate on the salary of non-resident cast and crew. And then there's a 30% rebate, there's a 5% bonus, there's a 30% rebate on the salaries of a Mississippi resident. And then we added a 5% bonus. A couple of years ago, we added a 5% bonus to any salary for an honorably discharged veteran. So, and that's our incentive program, and it's pretty competitive with the other states. I mean, the other great states out there: New Mexico, Louisiana, Georgia, Massachusetts, of course, New York, Michigan. And but our main competition right now is Louisiana and Georgia, and we are essentially, the value of our incentive is exactly the same as the value of theirs. So
the Louisiana story is a pretty interesting story. They've become, over the last years, via their incentive, a pretty big player, right?
Extraordinary. I mean, last year I think they had more feature films than California, and so they're the people who kind of created the film incentive. They broke the code for film incentives in the United States. They had them in beginning in the mid-90s in Canada. They had different kinds of support in other countries, but it was the Canada program that proved that if you incentivize this industry, it will act like any other industry and go where the environment is conducive financially. And then Louisiana figured that out, and they put some incentives in place in 2002, and then tweaked them in 2003, and it really started to happen for them. But then they're blessed with this city called New Orleans. You've been there, and you know, and they had a decent crew base. They had people. I mean, they didn't have what they have now, but they had a pretty good start at it, and it was a good incentive, and people started going there, and they've built up infrastructure, and the nature of their incentive draws a lot of big budget films, you know, Fantastic Four and G.I. Joe and Battle L.A., and I mean they get a lot of the big budget things, and then New Orleans, of course, they've had series down there, but you know, we're finding a little bleed over from there. You know, our incentive is we have a lower minimum spend for ours. Our minimum spend is $50,000. That's all you have to spend in order to qualify for our program, and over there it's $300. So a lot of these smaller films are finding their way over to us, and we're able to pay a little bit more attention to them, and we like the smaller films, actually, because they help train our crew. They hire more local people, and they give people a little bigger opportunity to learn and to move upward, you know, in the kind of in the organizational chart of a motion picture. And so we've been very fortunate in these films that have come in. A lot of these films that we've had recently are really interesting films, and really good scripts, and you know, we've been lucky, and it looks like these films that are $1 million, $2 million, up to $5 and $10 million budgets, which are these days low budget films, are all finding their way to us, and couldn't be happier that they're here.
What would the impact over the last year with films coming into the state? What's the economic impact?
Well, based on their budget estimations, those films, those 19 films, and the various other projects that were in here, they will spend. They're going to spend somewhere between $50 and $60 million, and that's direct spend. That's not a multiplier or enhanced in any way. It's going to be in that range, $50 to $60 million, which is pretty good. You know, that's directly spent, and you know, I don't like to deal with multipliers, but you know, the general film multiplier over the years has been somewhere between, I don't know, there's a state out there that uses 1.7, there's another state out there that uses 3.6, you know, so that kind of multiplier really proves and shows how much of this industry can mean to a place, to a state. But certainly we know what it means to a community. I mean, talk to the people from Greenwood, from The Help. An extraordinary example of the impact of a film on a bunch of levels, not just the financial level, but the personal level and the opportunity level. This film came in and created extraordinary relationship with the people of that town, and they were extraordinarily supportive. So that was a great marriage of community and film, The Help. So
for the filmmakers out there and the actors and actresses, people who want to be involved in a burgeoning industry that's coming to the state, what's your advice to them?
Well, go to our website. Go to the website, and which is www.filmmississippi.org, and you can sign up for our email updates, which will give you information about castings and production calls and all that kind of stuff. But also you can sign up for crew. You just go to there's a crew button there, and you can get into that and go through the real crew is our database of available crew, and just sign up and keep it updated as you work. You keep that updated, and that's where people go. That's where we send people. And there's even vendors. There's a place in there where you can go and for certain services and list yourself. So that's where it starts. We used to do a hard paper, kind of guide, and we don't do that anymore. It's all online.
Training. Let's say a young person wants to become a cameraman or a grip, whatever it might be. How are there any educational opportunities for people to learn, or do they learn on the job?
Well, yes. It's both, really. I mean, there's a program. There's a 2-year program at Hines Community College. There's a program down at Pearl River Community College. There's a 4-year program at USM on their Gulf Coast campus, and then there are not major programs in terms of getting a major in film, but there are programs in filmmaking at Mississippi State and at Ole Miss. And so you can go and get some classroom training. But yeah, the real training is to get on a set and learn how to do it. And it's funny, this year was so busy, especially the second half of the year. We had, film upon film. We had 3 films going on at the same time, and others prepping. And I needed crew at that moment. So to a certain degree, while the training programs are great, we're constantly looking at other training programs that are not academically and curriculum based, that are very specific, because when you need crew, you need crew. Then I can't wait till the semester's over. I have to have the crew. And so, but we did all right. We got a lot of people onto films this year that had never been on films. Some that had moved over from one department to another. Others had moved up in their department. And, frankly, Nina Parikh, who's the deputy director of the office, and I thought when these movies started to pile up in the fall, it's like, all we're going to hear about is that there's not enough crew. But we did all right. That really wasn't a complaint that we heard. They probably brought in more people than they wanted to from like New Orleans and Louisiana and places. But they found a lot of local folks in these films that were here.
Okay, we're talking to Ward Emling, the film commissioner here in the state, and we're going to be back with more of Ward Emling after this break. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amanda Rice with Quinn Healthcare, and I believe in the power of exercise. Many patients ask me if they would develop high blood pressure or diabetes just because their parents did. I tell them that although we cannot change our genetics, we can control our diet and level of exercise. Simply making better choices can change your life. I'm Dr. Amanda Rice with Quinn Healthcare, and I want you to know that you are in control.
Well, thanks for being with us. This is Nightique. I'm speaking to our film commissioner, Mr. Ward Emling. And this past year, I guess 2014 was a breakthrough year
crazy.
for films.
Yeah.
How many films came to Mississippi to shoot?
19. We had, and 3 of those were, 2 of them were short films. One called The Gift, which shot in Tupelo, and one called Olivia Martha Ilsa, which was a Mississippi retelling of Chekhov's Three Sisters. And it was set in Mississippi in the 30s, I think it was. And those were 2 shorts. And then there was a short film cycle by a Mississippi filmmaker named Alex Warren called Sequence, 4 short films. That actually came out. He's been screening it around the state and around the country recently. So those are the short films. So, but the other, all feature films. A couple of them just partial films. Mississippi Grind, which stars, I think that's the one with Ryan Reynolds and Sienna Miller, which filmed on the coast and in the Tunica area, in part. And then there's another one called Midnight Special, which filmed along the coast as well. And that, I don't know when that's coming out. That's, that'll come out. That's by the director, Jeff Nichols, who did this movie with Matthew McConaughey called Mud. That was a big hit last year, and Reese Witherspoon was in that. And then the rest of them were like, the complete films were here. Get On Up, of course, and
That's the James Brown.
The James Brown movie, and we had a movie called The Hollers, which was directed by John Krasinski. It starred Anna Kendrick and John and Richard Jenkins, and several others. Had a great cast, and it was produced by a guy from Jackson named Tom Rice. And so that will come out at some point. That was filmed last year, and that'll come out at some point. We had a Western called By Way of Helena, set in 1880s Texas, filmed in Greenwood, with Woody Harrelson and Liam Hemsworth and Alice Braga and William Hurt. It's a terrific cast. They turned the old Floorwood plantation kind of park into a Western town. So we now have a Western town. You want to shoot a Western? We got a Western. We got a Western town. And that's going to be a beautiful, beautiful film. I've seen some outtakes from it, and I've seen a little teaser clip from it, and it's like, wow, where did those locations come from? And then we had a movie called Life at These Speeds with Billy Crudup and Dixieland, a small independent film called Dixieland that had Steve Earle and Faith Hill and Riley Keough, who is Lisa Marie Presley's daughter, so Elvis's granddaughter. We had it was a pretty good range of films. We had Burt Reynolds in a film, and that was the year before. We had Tom Berenger in a film down on the coast, and it was like I said, it was a crazy year of film.
How do you keep it churning? How do you make sure that we've got more films coming?
Well, fortunately, this is small. The filmmaking community is a small community, and so they talk, and they know, where'd you make your last film? We made it in the Mississippi. Well, how was it? It was great. That kind of. So there's a lot of talk. We go to trade shows. There's a trade show we do in L.A., and we do the Tribeca Film Festival and Independent Film Week in New York. And New York's been actually a pretty good market for us. The producer of, I met the people with Dixieland in New York, and a couple of years ago, folks, Big Significant Things, they're out of New York. So we had been spending a lot of time in New York, and that has really paid off last year, and we think that it's going to continue. We know that one of the films that's coming here this year is from that same, out of New York, from relationships that we started there. But then the big trade show that we do every year is in Los Angeles in March of every year, and essentially you have a booth and you're in LA, and filmmakers and producers and directors and production designers and location managers all come to visit you, and you talk about it. But fortunately, we've got a lot of people talking about filming here.
Is our incentive program better than many states, or on a par with?
Well, I'd say we're in the top tier right now. We have a cap. We have a $20 million annual cap, so we can't give out more rebate in any one year than $20 million. And there are a couple of states that have no caps, like Louisiana, Georgia. They have no caps whatsoever, which is why the bigger films will go there as well. We had a really busy year last year, we're doing fine, and we'll move the cap up as we need to move the cap. But from a dollar for dollar impact, our incentive is as good as anybody's.
So from a practical standpoint, if I'm a producer, if I have the option to go to one state and they don't have any incentive program, and I have an option to shoot in Mississippi and it's 25%, let's say.
Yeah.
That means as a producer, if I spend $1 million on Mississippi talent and shooting, the $1 million I spend is in Mississippi, 25% can be rebated back to me as a producer.
Yeah, you're getting a rebate of 25%.
So that's $250,000.
Yeah, it's not small.
That will get someone's attention.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. And now you set up a scenario where I'm going to either go to this state or with no rebate,
right,
or this state with a rebate. Well, that's not even a decision anymore. Right. Your first conversation with the industry is about your incentive program. That's why they make 9.9 times out of 10 the decision is made based on the incentive. That's how you get there. And an interesting thing did happen last year, maybe in the last 18 months, is that once people realized that our incentive was cash equivalent to Louisiana and Georgia, then our locations became important again. Because until then, they didn't care. You'd go someplace because of the incentive, not necessarily because of the locations. Now, 15, 20 years ago, you went to a place because of the location. And now that we're essentially cash equal, our locations are back in play. So, and we have great locations. We have great cities and great town squares and great water. I mean, we have, really fabulous water resources in this state, all over the state. So people are finding better, they're making us work a little harder on locations too, because it's like, we got this film, it's really set in Lake Tahoe. Can you shoot it? Can we shoot it in Mississippi? Which, yes, because that's happening on the coast right now. A movie called Shark Lake with Dolph Lundgren, and that is, it's actually set at Lake Tahoe in Nevada, California, right there on the border, and they're shooting it in the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Amazing. So, okay, for folks watching who want to get in touch with what's going on in the film industry in our state, what is the web address again?
The website, www.filmmississippi.org. We have a Facebook page, so you can like us on Facebook. You'll get our updates that way. But we keep that going. We keep a lot of information on there, and but that's the best way to get to us.
As far as films coming in who are looking for cast and putting out a casting call and all that, a lot of that comes through you, and you blast it out via the emails, right?
Yeah, it goes out through our emails. Sometimes the newspapers are getting them now because we have a local casting director, a guy named Matthew Morgan, who's been working more and more here, and he's got a good network of good information network going. So he gets that word out too through his Facebook page and I guess he's got a website, and you know, I won't say I'm surprised by things when they get into the newspaper, but sometimes they're like, wow, that authority in the newspaper, because Matthew's casting something and he's got it out, got a casting call in the paper. But no, we're getting good. You know, the world of social media these days is really helping get the word out of things like this, because they happen pretty quickly.
Well, Ward, we could talk another
yeah, we
30
could,
minutes
couldn't
easily.
we?
There's so much going on. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, well, good. Good to be here. Thank you.
Please come back. We wanted to have you back on, talk about what's going on this new year in the film industry, okay?
I look forward to that.
Thank you. Ward Emling, our film commissioner here in the state. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back after this.
Since 1849, Carter Jewelers has been a part of Jackson's rich history. Over 163 years later, we've not only survived, Carter Jewelers has flourished. From generation to generation, we've established a tradition of excellence. Our reputation is built on customer satisfaction, service, and trust. Every piece of jewelry is handpicked, so you know you're getting the best value.
Nobody says I do like we do at Carter Jewelers.
Come see us and be part of our history.
Well, a lot of information from Ward Emling, the film commissioner of the state of Mississippi. A lot of films going on and a lot of films on the way. You can get involved in the film industry by checking in with the Film Commission's website. I'm Edward St. Pé. See you next time on Nightique.